Hey guys, good to see you after such a long time. I haven't been posting videos on YouTube lately, but finally I'm doing it now. So what is this video about? So with this video, I want to share my one of the interviews that I did last year in 2020 in summer, and I feel so guilty of not sharing those interviews with you. And finally, I have the chance to share these videos with you. They require some editing. I was not familiar with interviewing people, how to edit them, and I was busy with my startup farm station and my new house. We welcomed our second child, a beautiful daughter. So I have two kids now. So there are a lot of things that have been keeping me busy. Finally, I'm doing it. And with this particular video, in fact, this is part one of my long discussion with Pancham Prashar. So who is Pancham Prashar? Pancham is one of the co-founders at Cueblocks, a company that I worked with long time ago. Cueblocks is an e-commerce development and marketing agency based in Chandigarh. I worked with this agency many years ago as a business analyst. I had the opportunity to work with Pancham. My role at Cueblocks was to bring in sales and generate business for the company. So many sales skills, many things that I learned about sales came from my experience working with Pancham. And working with Pancham was a life changing experience. One of the biggest thing that I learned working with Pancham is that I don't have to be an asshole to do well in life. I can be honest, I can be ethical, and still do well for myself. In fact, working with Pancham was just the doctor would have advised to fix many broken areas of my life. It was very intensely learning experience. Pancham is someone who inspires me every time. It's very hard to meet Pancham and not be charmed by his simplicity and intellect. So, in this particular part one of my discussion, in this particular episode, we talk about many things, including how he positioned Cueblocks as a company that charges as high as $60 an hour. So, how does he command such a high hourly rate of as high as $55 and $60 an hour to his clients? And how he brings in business for the company, how he has built such a strong company culture. If you look at his website, cueblocks.com, you'll see how he, with his two co-founders, Sarthak and Navneet, uh, built such a strong culture that you'll just see for yourself when you look at their website, cueblocks.com, and how he manages time, and how he and Pancham is a vegan. He's a health nerd. He's a vegan. I've run many half marathons with Pancham, and things that maybe I'll discuss in my coming episode. But in this particular episode, we try to stick within the scope of how he generates business and how he positions the company. And if you're running a digital marketing agency or technology agency, I'm sure you'll take many gems from our wide-ranging discussion. So without any further ado, I'd like you to check out my discussion with Pancham. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did speaking with Pancham. I can see you and I can hear you. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Good to finally see you. Congratulations
Thank you so much. Thank you. And congratulations. You can explain why you're congratulating me.
for the baby.
For the baby at the day house. Thank you.
I know I'm going to be following your footsteps soon. It'll be
Yes, I'm
interesting.
really looking forward to the news from your side.
Yeah, any moment now. Yeah, I think maybe another 10 days or so. For a week, 10 days more. Fingers crossed. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah. Celebration.
Yeah, really, really.
How's pandemic treating you? Where are you? You're in the office right now?
I'm in the office. Yeah, I came here, had some work, and I thought I'll also.
Ah,
The
nice.
internet connection is a little bit better here, so it'll be
Okay.
easy talking
Okay.
here.
So how's your routine in the pandemic? Do you go to office daily?
Yeah, I think we are. We what we've done is we've allowed only a handful of people to be in the office. So there are about 5, 7 people at any point in time, and any meetings that we're having are happening here in the office. but I think most of the people are working from home. And I think we'll continue like that at least till December, January, till there's more news that it's safer. Maybe the vaccine comes out. Although I have my opinion on vaccines and how effective they really are. Um, it's it's a different discussion altogether. But
I know.
efficacy and safety of vaccines, yeah, it's a different thing altogether.
Yes, I know. But any good news now is a ray of hope for us, for humanity, because it's been a while
Yeah,
now.
I think
Um,
that is there, yeah. But I think it's going to come back again. Is if we're not really careful. There's a bigger, greater pandemic which is just looming around the corner. There was H1N1. There's another one which is some H9 something, which is fatality rate of about 40-45%. Which is even more crazy. For example, here it is much lesser with COVID-19, and it's all happening with the way these animals are treated and how humans have actually become closer to these wet markets, and it's all coming back in
Yeah,
some way.
it's crazy. I saw the video of Bill Gates, which I think it was a TED talk he did 5 years ago, and he predicted everything that this is going to happen, and it happened.
Right.
That
Dr.
almost.
Michael Greger, yeah. If you look at Dr. Michael Greger on Nutrition Facts, he took out a video about I think about 12 odd years back, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So there he laid out exactly what would happen really. And he's a guy who's not really very commercially driven. In fact, he's probably one of the most people, I would say. He runs this organization with no money involved, doesn't take a salary. uh, Bill Gates, you can still say he's got a pony in the game. There's there are various conspiracy theories around him as well. So that's another discussion.
Yes, we can go in many directions, Pancham. But with you, when I was doing my homework for our discussion today, and I was thinking we can go in so many directions when I'm talking to you. We can talk about health and fitness, which I know for a fact that it is your favorite topic right now because you've done a lot of research. You've been very actively promoting good health practices. But I thought if we go in that direction, I really want to dig in as a layman because I am not even close to what you have, the kind of knowledge you have gathered about health and fitness. I have attended some of your seminars and they were very, very helpful. So when you talk about health, I want to only focus about health. Right now, my homework that I've done is all about business. Like I
Right.
shared, my audience, my small audience, my students, they are mostly curious to know here right now from people like yourself about how they started their business and what they're doing and what are their habits, practices that they do. So let's go keep in the direction and
Let's do that.
hopefully we'll have another discussion
Got
very soon
it. Yeah.
about health. Yeah, and I'll be more prepared for those questions. But I want to ask you good questions. I don't want to ask you stupid questions.
No, totally. You've never asked stupid questions. I think you're very inquisitive as a person. That's what comes across every time we've had an interaction. So even if it is impromptu, I'm sure you'll have questions which are which are very important and useful. So,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, let's
Yeah,
stick to this particular topic for this time round. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I think a good place to start
I
is
think as well. Sorry
sure.
for if you can just see how quick Aya hoga. Did you get a request for in Zoom?
I haven't, Pancham.
Okay, cool.
I've already
Because you're
accepted.
saying request record permission from the.
I think what's happening is we have two meetings going on, so we can only be in one meeting. So I think I'm
Okay,
recording. That should be fine. I
fine.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, sound good.
Yeah. So let's hope for the best. I have backup recording just in case if this doesn't work. At least we'll have audio recording.
Okay, cool.
Acha, Pancham, I want to start with asking a question that I've never asked you. Let me close my
Mhm.
WhatsApp. It'll keep bugging me. Okay. So, question I want to ask you is about your childhood, because I've asked you all sorts of questions, and we never got into that area. How were you raised as a kid, and how was your parenting like? And yeah, so if you can start by telling me about your childhood.
Yeah, so my father was serving in the Indian Army, and he retired as a colonel, and uh, the army life was the pillar stone of how we've grown as me and my brother have grown as individuals. I think it's a fantastic life. Anybody who's a Fauji kid would understand. this, and anytime you kind of leave the army life as a kid and you move out in the civil life, there's usually a stage of cultural shock, which took me about 2 years to settle in life outside, because there are some differences that I felt. And I think my dad had a role to play more in terms of just giving us a lot of discipline, a lot of heroic stories, because he was the army man and he would instill that in a lot of us. And I think my mom, she had a bigger influence in terms of raising her spiritual quotient a lot. I think both my mom and dad were very spiritually inclined as people, and right from the very beginning, I think there was focus on treating people right. What are the values that matter? What's the end stage of life? Talks about my being of service, right? So I think that kind of has stayed with us throughout. But I think it was a very beautiful childhood in terms of what army gave us and what mom and dad were able to do together. With the army life, every 2 years, 3 years, we had to be posted to some portion, some part of India. That forced us as kids to, from a very young age, to start making new friends, get acclimatized to a new environment, new school. I think that makes you very resilient and very flexible as a person, and I think that kind of helped out. So it was, I think we had a privileged lifestyle. It wasn't like but there was also a lot of focus on not taking things for granted. You know, with army you get a lot of facilities, but how you treat that is again what is instilled very properly in most of the army kids. So I think that culture of valuing your country, and the good part about army and armed forces is that they're very cut off from having any influence on the civil life. So there's less corruption. There's no vested interest that they would be interfering with anybody outside. So as a result, it remains very isolated and very different as an organization as compared to others where there is an interaction and there are chances of more perhaps corruption and more interaction with people. So I think that kind of really helped out. And I think when after my 10th was done and I moved and we settled here in Chandigarh, 11th and 12th, 2 years in Chandigarh, it took to just get used to that life, and there was massive cultural shock really, but then it turned out all right. Yeah.
Where were you posted? Where was Uncle posted before your 10th and 11th?
So we were in the last posting from before we came to Chandigarh. We were posted in Hisar. Dad was posted in Hisar, and then his last posting was in Babina. So he went to Babina, and we were in Chandigarh for about 1.5 odd years before he retired. And so the last posting he wanted us to before he went there.
Pancham, आपका notification on, I think it's buzzing.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Now and then. It'll be loud for people who are hearing this on their headphones.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you shouldn't be hearing it.
Yeah. Okay. So I did not know that you. So it makes sense now. A lot of discipline that I see in you comes from the way you were raised as a kid of an army man. And I so wish, Pancham, I don't wish it for myself that I was an army man, but I always, when I look at Parth, my son, and I want him to be more disciplined, I now wish I was an army man. I was more disciplined to put him into discipline, because the challenge about asking your kid to be in discipline is that you cannot tell them anything until you yourself do them. And kids, these are very smart. They'll immediately point you, कि पापा आपने तो ऐसे किया था. So it's very hard to discipline your kids until you're not disciplined. And I'm nowhere near to be raised like in an army environment. We used to wake up at whatever time we wanted. I mean, my papa was very chilled out. He allowed me to make all the mistakes. He gave me all the freedom, whatever I wanted to do. And his father my grandfather did not put him into a lot of discipline. Not that my parenting wasn't good. I was very loved as a kid.
I know.
And there were a lot of good things about my parenting, but discipline hasn't been my strength as a kid. Something I have to work my way as I grow old. And I feel it's good to be raised like you've been, because once you're young, you develop the habit much sooner, and then as compared to now, you have to break the bad habits, and then develop new habits. This is a challenge.
And I think also, you're right. Also, what is interesting is that when you're in an ecosystem where everybody is doing it, when everybody gets up in the morning as an officer or as part of the armed forces, there is PT in the morning. You see them getting up early in the morning, going there for about 2 hours, come back home, have the breakfast, get ready, go to office, and there's evening PT as well. And there is socialization on some days. You meet everybody, and there's a lot of camaraderie and bonhomie between all the families and people. I think in such an environment, it's easier to, when you have live examples of people around you, and there is a culture of taking care of yourself, taking care of fitness, being a certain way. And I think that somehow, even if you don't want, there is some portion of it that will rub off on you, and you won't even realize. And when you become older, you realize, yeah, these are things that I can understand. Even if you kind of go off rail, it's easy to get back on track because that's what you've seen for about 15, 20 years of your life when you were a Fauji kid.
Yeah, it's just like when we learn swimming and like we learn cycling. It's hard to forget few things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Acha, Pancham, what did you want to become as a kid when you were a small kid? Did you have any aspirations?
You know what? I think now that I think of it, it was mostly the expectations of others. Really, just being in the army, I thought, I'll get into the army because that's the only life I knew at that time. My dad used to say, you should be IAS. IAS is really good, administrative services. So at one point in time, I would say, okay, I want to be an IAS officer. But in the heart of heart, kabhi aisa nahi tha ki, this is what I really, really wanted to do. So, somebody would ask, "Kya karna chahte ho?" Say, I want to be an army officer, or probably I want to be. At later on, I remember when I was in my 9th, 10th, 11th, I would say, I want to be an IAS officer. But ऐसा कुछ clear नहीं था really, this is exactly what I want to do.
In those days, we are very confident. We should say, I want to be an IAS officer. For example, chemical engineers तो बड़े अच्छे होते हैं. Just be a chemical engineer, because one of my father's friend, he ran a big industrial plant, and he told him probably that chemical engineers are very highly paid. तो मैं chemistry, I tried to spend a lot of time understanding chemistry. मुझे कुछ समझ में नहीं आता था. I told a lot of people that I want to be a chemical engineer, but inside I knew me chemistry बिल्कुल समझ में नहीं आती है. So it took me a lot of hits and trials, but I think by the time I was into my 20s, when I started spending time with my dad, I used to sit with him on our jewelry shop. I learned quickly then that the only thing I can do, I think, is be a good businessman, learn from my dad, from my grandfather. I think it's the legacy. I want to take it forward. But until 20s, I was also very confused. What do I want to do?
But ये भी लगता है कि Pulkit, sorry, I'm interrupting you there, but I also feel that there's too much pressure on trying to figure out what do you really want to become. These are these questions that we end up asking our kids. I think a lot of youngsters go through it as well, and sometimes they have to come up with an answer. Maybe they're not ready at that point in time. They are still exploring. Maybe whatever exposure they have seen, that's their only worldview. Perhaps when they go out somewhere and they'll see other things, that might suit them better. Maybe that is what's going to really fire them up from the inside. And वो भी change हो सकता है. Not many people are like Sachin Tendulkar, who were born perhaps, or they were molded in a way to become actually cricketers. Right? And I think that's okay. There's people can change their careers as well. We necessarily wouldn't be in digital marketing for the rest of our lives. We wouldn't necessarily be doing only this kind of work. If there is an inspiration and there is a need to kind of be something else, thankfully in today's day and age, we can do it. We don't have a bond with a certain government organization that we have to be with until 60s, right? Or whatever is the retirement time. So I think there's a lot of flexibility as long as you know yourself and you allow yourself the freedom to even say that I don't know what I want to do really. I'm going to focus on my skills. I'm going to try and get as much experience, varied experience as possible. And then I'll see how things are. And it's okay to say that, I feel, rather than just pretending and saying, I want to be an IAS officer, which I used to do. And I didn't become an IAS officer. Right? Yeah, so,
I think it's a question that people should stop asking their kids. It's very hard as a kid, because when we are studying something, we don't know whether we will be good at it. It also depends on the teacher, how they're teaching it, whether we get the concepts or not. So those so many variables that the question is not even valid. And the other thing which I feel is, like you said, we should allow each other to change their mind. I mean, when someone asks me about me that आपने 2 साल पहले ऐसे कहा था, या you were like that 5 years ago, आपने तो last month ऐसे कहा था. मैं कहा हाँ, मैंने mind change कर लिया, change my mind. तो कहता है, how can you change your mind on such a thing? So I tell them, I change as a person. I experience new things every day. I learn books, I read, I see other people doing things, and I change my mind. So what's the problem of me? Why am I not allowed to change my mind? You can change your mind. I'll never ask you, I'll never complain that पहले आपने ऐसे कहा था, अब आप ऐसे कह रहे हो. You will evolve as a person. So I think that freedom should always be there. If I mean, for a healthy person to be a good learner, I think that is important.
I think
Okay.
people are kind of afraid, or parents are afraid that if they don't know, then they'll not be having any direction. I feel rather than trying to find an answer that somebody would say, this is what I want to be, and giving a false sense of clarity. Even if somebody says, you know what, I'm not sure, but I'm committed to lifelong learning. I'm committed to,
Yeah.
improving as a person. And I'm also committed to giving myself that leeway to step off the gas and, enjoy life in between. वो बैलेंस कितना होता है, whether you really go one way in a hedonistic manner and pursue other things, or you become
Yeah.
really on the other side where you become super focused and super tensed up. क्या बैलेंस है आपके लिए, वो आप ही डिटरमिन कर सकते हो कि आप क्या चाहते हैं.
Yeah, I agree. And I do make claims often about what I want going to do in the next 2 years, next 5 years, for example. I might say I want to start a billion-dollar company. Why? Because I want to give myself social accountability, so that I put pressure on myself that I told people that I'm going to start a podcast. So I'm doing it. I might say I want to start a billion-dollar company, then I'll at least make effort because I want to be true to myself. I want to be socially accountable, and I will also allow myself to fail. I'll try my best. I'll tell people I'll do it. I'll do it. It might work. It may not work. I'll give my 100% as far as I know myself, because the only person who knows did I try it 100, give my 100% to it, is only me. So I think social accountability helps, but yeah, there are too many variables.
No, absolutely. There is also research which says that if you announce it, for some people, the way it works is that it tells their mind that since I've already announced it to my friends and
Yeah.
family, you feel like you've almost perhaps achieved it.
Yeah.
So I think there are these tips and tricks which they may work or may not work, and you have to see what works for you.
I used to do that. So I'm very selective when I say something publicly. Now, usually what happens is I do things and then tell people that I've done it. But sometimes when I see that I'm afraid of something, I'm too
Yeah.
afraid to do something, I'll announce it because I know in my mind that I'm afraid of it. So I want to
Right.
socially commit myself that I have to do it, otherwise me naak kar jayegi.
So, yeah, whatever works. I think whatever can push you to get there, and if that's truly what you want to get, then absolutely.
Okay. So, Manjab, how did the transition go from wanting to become an IAS officer as a kid, and then in your 20s, you started Cueblocks, become entrepreneur. How did that transition go? I'd love to know that.
Pulkit, one of the big influences for me was the 3.5 years that I was in this organization called ISEC. It's a student organization. It's a non-profit, non-political, totally student-run voluntary organization, and I was part of it while I was in college as well, while I was pursuing my graduation, and that allowed me to expose myself to so many situations which I am pretty sure would have not come my way if I hadn't joined ISEC. So that organization, I owe a lot of where I am to ISEC as an organization, and the kind of exposure it gave me as a young kid. And that's also true for my two other business partners, Sarthak and Avneet, who were also members of ISEC during their college time. That's how I met them, right? And what happened was that college happened, everything finished, ISEC got over, and then we wanted to get into the settle down and get into a professional life. And then I started working, and I worked with, my first job was to work with this company called Smart Data, an excellent company based out of Chandigarh, and I worked with them for about a year and a half. Learned a lot during that time, and during that time also got a chance to dabble into something called internet marketing and SEO. This was very very early days. Imagine 2001, during those days, right? And then I managed to join my second company, which was Red Alchemy, or Pugmarks. That was the company that I got a chance to work with. Worked very closely with Atul and also Anuja. I think there have been all three of us. We managed to go very deep into digital marketing, into SEO, because it was still very new at that point in time. And then having worked there for about 2.5 odd years, there was again a choice now what to do. Should we, maybe join another company or move to another city, as a personal choice. But I think then three of us, we decided that let's stick our necks out and see if you want to get onto an entrepreneurial journey, because this may be a good time to do it. And then 2005 is when we decided to start Cueblocks. And, and I think it's been about 15 years since that journey has been going on here.
15 years is a long time.
Yeah, it's
When I was
long.
in Cueblocks, we finished 6 years, and I was thought, oh, it's a 6 years old company. So I was like, it's an old company, 6 years, and now it's 15 years old company. So, Pancham, when you guys started Cueblocks, you could have started any one more infotech in the city. There were a lot of solutions and infotechs in the city, and overall India thriving. Everyone was starting IT companies in those days. It was, I think, a golden time to start an IT company because the competition wasn't there, and it was a good time. But you started a very beautifully positioned company. I'm sure that evolved as you started. You took one step at a time, you planned, but the final product you had as a company was a company that were only, instead of providing umbrella services, you were providing a few services. You only focus on e-commerce.
Right.
uh, you started as a very, very small company, and the hourly rate that you were charging was phenomenally high. I'm not sure how you started, but when I was working there, the hourly rate was around $55 an hour for development projects, which was almost double the hourly rate I've seen in most good companies. I'm not talking about small companies. Good companies charging $25 an hour, and you guys were charging $55 an hour.
Right.
And I saw a lot of new things. For example, when I came for the interview, I was told there's no sales team, and it was just you. And I wanted to be a part of the sales team. I was lucky to get the opportunity, but I was surprised there's no sales team in the company. So I could see that this company is very unique, and there were two beautiful dogs that I could not find in any company. In those days, it was still common in the Silicon Valley for offices to have dogs, not companies in India. Were not allowed. And smaller details, Pancham, I'm telling you as an employee, a person who was exposed to the company. So, and one of the remarkable things I saw in at Cueblocks is the way everyone, especially top management, you guys, and then employees used to treat the office helpers. Bhaiya jo wahan pe the, we had few people there. They were treated with a lot of respect, as much as any employee would get. So all those things made my experience at Cueblocks. And when I wanted to leave the company, it was almost like I had no reason to leave the company. After working with you for almost 2 years, 1.5, 2 years, I had no reason to leave the company. But my impression, I think I digress. What I must say is that the company, from a business standpoint, was beautifully positioned. You were able to command a very high dollar rate. So, and the last time when we met, you also spoke, when we met at Starbucks, you shared that you want to position the company further towards gear towards providing services to environmentally responsible companies. So
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
has the positioning, how have you positioned the business from then to today, and how has it played a role to take the company where it is today?
I get what you're saying, Pulkit. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
It's a long
Really,
question, sorry.
I, uh, I think you ended up saying a lot of things which are, I really value and I really appreciate. And it gives more strength that, we continue doing what we are doing here. So I think when we started out as well, I think there was genuinely no कोई scheme नहीं थी कि आईटी में ये चल रहा है तो हमें अपना काम शुरू करना चाहिए. I think we don't, as people, three of us, we don't really necessarily take decisions based on only what's happening in the world outside. That of course we have a ear on the ground, but at the same time we also want to see what we are comfortable with. I think it just happened that we were ready to start with Cueblocks, and we had some ideas being in ISEC and then having read a lot of different literature and books, etc. We realized that we wanted to build something which a company or a place where there is a very solid work culture. And I think along with work culture, the second thing that we wanted was a very, very competent team. ये दोनों चीजों का marriage is what we wanted. And also we were not looking at it typically as a business. So the way we set up the entire office and a working model was that how would we as people want to spend those 8, 9, 10 hours that we spend in the office? how should the infrastructure be, right? It's not like the CEO or the management has a very lavish room and the rest of the team are necessarily not given that kind of infrastructure. So I think the focus was very clear that if we build a solid work culture and that clarity was there, and you treat people with respect, and the golden rule that you treat people the way you want yourself to be treated. I think if you follow that, then things become easy, and people see that, and you can't fake these things, right? Sometimes you might have an infrastructure where you're having pool table and foosball and table tennis, but if you do not even provide your teams the amount of time to actually enjoy those, and you're breathing down their neck and you're not really giving them that leeway to just unwind, unki productivity nahi hogi. It is just dikhawa then. It's just PR and marketing, right? So I think a thought was that it has to be a very solid work culture, which is always going to be work in progress, and also we need to be very competent in what we are doing. So if we go and tell somebody that Cueblocks is doing e-commerce, Magento development, we're doing design or digital marketing, whatever services we're offering, we need to feel true as a salesperson, right? If, like you rightly said, there was hardly a sales team, it was primarily me, and then now we have another team member. We have a team about 50 people now. There are only 2 people who are into business development or finding new relationships. I don't like the word sales, but I think more like trying to find more synergistic clients who we can serve in a way. It's a long way to say the same thing, but maybe ye focus always like the sales team does not have a separate target. It's not like we have a target. Obviously there is something we're trying to grow, we're trying to reach towards, but it is not disjointed with our delivery team. I think the moment that happens, there was a clarity in all of us that the moment that will happen, where the sales team or the business development team starts getting more work, we are selling a dream to these customers, clients, right? That's what happens in services sale. They can't see an end product. We say we're going to do a fantastic job with the Magento store. We're going to do a fantastic job with the design. And they believe us. They will believe my word and the word of the other team member. And based on that, they will go ahead and start an engagement. Imagine a scenario where your team is already full with deliveries for the next 2 months. What kind of output would we end up giving? It would eventually be a failed relationship, right? Because you will either end up asking your teams to stay back longer. They'll have to work weekends because you've already committed, you got the payment. So I think the moment you get clarity and you lead your professional life in a way that you want your personal life to be, I think then things start moving in synergy. So that's why anytime we are getting new clients, we are trying to get more work, we are always talking to our teams and figuring out what is the capacity. Can we actually do a great job on it? And I think that has allowed us the confidence to charge the hourly rate that we do. So now our hourly rate, ranges between $40 to $60 an hour. And the only reason we're able to do that while being in India is because we feel that anytime a client engages with us, the entire range of experience that they will get, not only the end product, which of course is an important part, but the way we get that end product done, the communication, the way, if at all there is negative feedback or things that we can improve, how do we take that? All those micro interactions end up making that relationship. And if the client feels really great that, I'm still getting great value and I happily pay probably twice the amount of money for the same quality, then you're doing a good job, I feel. Then you're doing a good job to your craft. So that has been primarily the focus. And I say this often to our team that we want to build Cueblocks not as an army, but as a very specialized team, like a crack commando force, people who are very specialized in their work. And they're doing very, very good work. There are very few people who are working there, people who've been selected with a lot of focus on whether they'll be a good match. And then as a result, the output becomes comparable then. So I don't know if I answered your question. I just went on a
No, you did answer it. And I think
dimension there.
you see animation behind me?
Pulkit, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think for us a beach mein.
How my connection?
Now I can see you. Yes.
Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can.
So I was saying it's the way you articulated it is very good to hear, because I see a lot of people who are running their business. Can you hear me properly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs, agency owners who are running business, and yes, they do have a pool table, they do have a gaming station, they do have few dogs, but
as you rightly said, they do not give their people time to really play those games, or just have that their pleasure time at office. For them, they are just billable resources. They are making for
Look at you.
every. Okay. So Pancham, when you started, how did you get your first few clients?
You
Still cannot hear me?
okay? Now I can, yes.
Okay.
So when we started out earlier, about 2 odd years, we were active on some of these sites like Guru.com and Elance.com.
Plans, yeah.
Elance is, I think, up. Elance, in fact, we weren't very active, but Guru.com we were really active on, and I think that was also a great experience. That was our conversion rate was fairly high, thanks to the fact that there were no cookie cutter responses that we were sending to these inquiries. So we kind of spent a lot of time initially to study the requirement, check out the website, and it was very easy for a potential client on Guru, when they would see a reply, to see that this is different. So if they were getting 40 responses, I think our responses were fairly unique. We kind of spent that time because we weren't really doing it in a lot of hurry. So initial wait, I think about 2 years, that was a very good starting point for us to get a few clients. In fact, there are some clients that we have from 2006, early 2006, who are still with us, and they've grown tremendously. And that made it a slightly little bit easier. And once that happened, then there was a lot of repeat work we would get from them. There were a lot of reference work we would get. As of now, currently the stats are that we get almost about 80% of the work and the clients that we service right now are from references, and clients who are happy, they say, this is somebody who needs it. And about 20% is new work that we get from either our listings in certain places, or we go on conferences and we find new work.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder where did Guru.com disappear? There used to be Elance.
Yeah.
Elance is still there. But yeah, there were a lot of platforms, Elance, and the same discussion I had with Chavi before. When I spoke to her, she also said, and I think maybe not sure if that is the case with you. It's definitely the case with me. Working with Chavi, I learned something is that the cookie cutter responses, she used to always point me, don't send me these responses. Okay, just spend time. And that was my strength. Sending people long emails, doing very detailed analysis. It was one of my strengths. So she said the same thing. She said,
और पुलकी कितना मुश्किल होता है, मतलब ये करना. आई थिंक मुझे लगता है कि जैसे इवन पीपल हु आर अप्लाइंग फॉर जॉब्स, और यू आर ट्राइंग टू एंगेज अ न्यू पोटेंशियल कस्टमर, it doesn't take too much effort to have that knowledge and judgment to know that how will I stand out. For example, you must be getting in CVs as well for people who are trying to apply,
yeah,
and you say please be attached.
PFA.
Is this the way you approach your potential job, your career? There's not even a motivation letter. Or you can see that it has been copied from somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing happens when you send an email to a potential client. When they'll know within a matter of few sentences, within a matter of few minutes, they'll know, yeah, this is something which has just been copied, and there's nothing, it's very generic, it's nothing customized to my requirement, and they just switch off here, because they'll then get a sense that if this is how the level of seriousness with which they are approaching the first interaction, I wonder what will happen when I really commit my money and I'm kind of engaged with it.
Yeah, and
So every step of the way.
Yeah, please go on.
No, I was just saying that every step of the way you have to show that willingness to go the extra mile, and it shouldn't be an effort really, because it should ideally be the only way that one knows. यार यही करना है यार, copy paste तो हमने करना नहीं है. Because जो copy paste होता है, then as a result you know your own value inside, and then when obviously then you'll be getting paid lesser for it, because you're not really sure about your competence and the impact that you will end up making. But the moment you put in more time and you know that you are articulating that really well, you can be compensated a lot more than just that.
And it's not that it doesn't work. I mean, it works. You can send people a CV without a cover letter and get a response, or send a cookie cutter message on Upwork. You can get responses. You can close businesses, but don't expect good clients to respond. Don't expect good companies to respond. You put in that kind of effort. Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Okay, so you
Apart from, so you mentioned that you went to IRC conference. Can you hear me, Pancham? That's fine. Yeah. So I was asking you, Pancham, about IRCE conference. You went there. At what point did you had the cash flow to go to the IRC conference? And I know for a fact that you do go to conferences every now and then. So how helpful has attending this conference been to you? And is it really worth your money? Because it's a big financial commitment for any startup, especially agency. If you, let's say, have 4-5 lakh rupees, if you want to spend that to travel all the way to US or London. I get conference invitations for conferences all the time, but I just don't feel the conference that I want to take the risk of going there. Will I get in the business when I'm getting the business from a website? So how did you decide, and does it really help going to these conferences?
I think our experience, Pulkit, has been that it is always variable. For example, when we went to Internet Retailer conference, that was the world's largest e-commerce focused conference. That was in San Diego, and we made a major commitment. We were 4 of us. We set up a booth. Our booth was right in front of Google's booth. In terms of visibility, would have been perfect. But interestingly, after spending all that money, there was zero conversion from there. We did not get a single client from there.
Wow.
We got a lot of, we got a lot of business cards and a lot of interest, but nothing really eventually converted. On the contrary, there were times where we had not had any booth, but you were just sitting there in between a session at a conference and you were speaking to somebody, or meeting them at a networking event. Usually conferences mein networking event hote hain, they have a party or something. And if you are like me, who doesn't enjoy parties, but you force yourself in a way to go there, right? And then you never know, yeah. We've had clients who we managed to get from such interactions for those 4-5 minutes. We exchanged cards and there was some kind of a connect, and that eventuated into a long-term business and a relationship. Whereas in cases where we had a massive investment as well, it did not work out. So it's very variable. I think for conferences, anybody who's a startup, I would say that if you're looking at it like this, that I'm going to get, if I'm investing 4 lakh rupees, I'm going to make 10 lakh rupees or 20 lakh rupees over time from this. I think that equation may not work. A lot of times people say that it should be like a shotgun approach. You should try and be in as many places as possible, try and network, and then commit a budget for about a year's time, identify good conferences, and then when you go to these places, try and speak to as many people and be as present as you possibly can be. And I feel along with that, the big reason why as an entrepreneur you want to go for conferences is your own personal motivation. Beyond the fact that you might get any client, which may or may not happen, but the fact that you feel connected or to the ecosystem, and the fact that you can actually see these experts out there speaking, and sometimes you realize, oh, this is something I already know very well, or oh, this is something that I've is totally new. And it might just somehow start a process of thinking where you might say that, in some time I want to be going there and speaking on a certain area of expertise. So I think conferences have multitude of benefits, and it again depends on what your objectives are. And I feel that you should have the flexibility to look at it not from a point of view of only getting sales and only getting customers, because there is always going to be variability there.
Yeah. So what I get from it is that I think it's all about building what you just said, building the relationships, initiating relationships that may or may not materialize into business from a good intent. That the intent is to build first relationship, and going to conferences does serve that purpose. Talking about relationships, Pancham, I think it was your wedding, and I saw a client flying from the US to attend your wedding. It was your wedding, or was it Avneet's?
It was my wedding, and there was, I think, somebody in Avneet's wedding as well.
Yeah.
And there was somebody at Sarthak's wedding as well.
Yeah, so that's unique. I mean, for clients to go and meet their vendors, that is not very common either. Not for any business purpose. Clients do visit for business purpose all the time, but having that relationship, that is also big part of what I think Cueblocks is as a company.
Absolutely. I think we that was really something we felt very happy about, this, the fact that they could come from Chicago and spend those days with us. And we've had a few clients come all the way, because then what we tell them is also that you've not been to India, you can obviously travel here, take a vacation, and we'll obviously discuss work as well.
Yeah.
So when my wedding was happening, it was and we had a very deep relationship with this client, and it became a perfect opportunity that they could see an Indian wedding. They've kind of mostly seen it in the movies, if at all they've seen any. And as it, we get a chance to meet with the team as well and see our infrastructure, and then you kind of make it very holistic. The whole travel can be made multi-dimensional. So there's the Indian wedding, whereas meeting your agency and getting to interact with your teams. Probably go from there to Jaipur or to Goa or to other places. So it becomes like a completely well-rounded break for them as well. So we've been very lucky that ways that some of our clients have felt that they can take out the time to actually do this,
So
and it always when
so
you meet
what do
in
you think?
person.
What do you think is the contributing factor that builds these kind of relationship with the client? Because the client is connected to the company, to the people they're working with. Only then they would decide that they want to even make a pleasure trip, see an Indian wedding. So, yeah.
I think Pulkit, always with any relationship, yeah, whether you're talking about personal relationship or professional relationship, you need to have walked a certain mile with certain amount of distance with that person. They should get to know you a bit more, and then as a result, decide that this is the investment I want to make. So I think that is what I think as a company and as people, our focus has been that we don't want to have any shallow relationships. कि यार कि ये सिर्फ ट्रांजैक्शनल रिलेशनशिप है, इससे थोड़ी देर के लिए हमें काम निकालना है, हमारा बॉटम लाइन है, वो मीट हो जाएगा. I think those things, that energy is you can see through, and that will never necessarily result in a long-lasting relationship where the client is for you as well and you are there for the client as well. Right? There could be a time where your client is trying to scale up. They may not have the money, but they may not be able to pay you immediately. Your invoices are due for maybe 2 months or 3 months. But if you've had a relationship with them, you trust them, right? You won't blindly trust them as well, because if it's a new relationship and they haven't made any payment, there is no prior relationship to build on. But if you've had a long relationship, they understand you, you understand them, and it's not going anywhere. So just like with friends or in our personal lives, we go the extra mile with any individual who we know will be with us. Same thing happens in business. I feel when people start their careers or start their businesses, it's very important to understand that your business life and your personal life, how you are in your business life and how you're in your personal life, they are congruent. They are not different. So if you are a difficult person in your personal life, you will be a difficult person as a partner, as a business partner, and even as an agency owner. Right? So ये दो चीजें अलग नहीं है. हमें अपनी दोनों चीजों को इकट्ठी रखनी है. कई बार हम सोचते हैं कि बिजनेस स्किल्स डेवलप कर लेते हैं और अपने पर्सनल स्किल्स के ऊपर हम फोकस नहीं करते हैं. हम अपने आप को अच्छा इंसान नहीं बनाते हैं, अच्छी वैल्यूज नहीं देखते हैं. क्योंकि जो एजेंसी कोई भी शुरू करता है, आप अगर कोई भी नया, इफ यू डूइंग एनी काइंड ऑफ वर्क, especially in the kind of work somebody who wants to start, let's say, an agency, right? They, the kind of people you'll deal with, within a matter of 2-3 minutes, they can see through you. Right? These are people who are owners of businesses you're speaking with. They've been in the circus. They've seen the dance. So you can't impress them with an American accent if you're in India. You can't change your name to an American name. Right?
Yeah.
So that you have to be. I feel that it's important that they should understand what you're saying. But these bells and whistles aren't the reason why relationships get, bonds get developed. The problem is when we try and only focus on this, and I think that's the problem with the work, with the culture overall as well, in where we are right now, where हम बहुत ज़्यादा सिर्फ external को देखते हैं. What kind of clothes are you wearing? What kind of a car are you driving? How do you look? How do you walk inside? How do you shake hands? These things serve a purpose, but not really too much beyond a point. Right? So it's important to know that, for example, if I'm called for a formal event and I'm wearing sneakers or chappals and I'm going there, I'm calling for it, right? That may not be appropriate. But for me to think that if I wear a nice 3-piece suit, everybody would want to do business with me is again wrong, right? So it may reduce some friction, but it's not the main reason why people get into relationships, either as people or as agents.
I think it's all about being authentic, in which I think, Pancham, I have to say I've learned it from you. Before meeting you, I knew that I have to be authentic, I have to be humble, and there are smarter people out there. And when I met you, I saw you as a person that, I mean, you are not the smartest, but you still are always comfortable with your limitation, with your strengths and your weaknesses. And you never pretend to be someone else. And the biggest contrast I saw, Pancham, and you laugh at it, when I joined Cueblocks, I think you were still driving your Hyundai Santro.
Right.
That was your first car. And I
Yeah.
I used to come in my Polo, my new Polo. Okay.
Right. Right.
And you laugh. I bought that Polo on an EMI to impress a random girl
Okay.
who did not care about which car I drove.
Right. Right.
And I was still paying EMIs for that car. So that's the kind of inner conflict I had, because I saw many friends who were driving big cars. So I thought, when I start making money, I want a car. And when I make money, I want better clothes. So there were a lot of things, and I knew that this is not me being authentic.
Sure.
Okay, it doesn't matter what clothes I wear. Like you said, it is important. You should wear clean clothes. You should look clean, cleanly dressed. That is important. Maybe a watch, if you like it, but it doesn't give you a path to success. And what it does, it creates an inner conflict when you don't know what you really want, what makes you happy. So it has been a journey. It was a very interesting time when I met you, when I explored myself, that what I really wanted. We did a lot of activities together, including the morning runs we used to do, and the morning sessions when I used to come to you, and we used to talk about random things. So it has been a journey, and that was almost same year when I turned 30 and got married. So it was a very transformative experience for me as a person. That is why I think I recommend a lot of people to go, if they're looking for a job. I tell them, just go to work, go and try getting a job at Cueblocks if you can, because it's very transformational when you work with like-minded. Because what's happening with Cueblocks is that they're very like-minded people who are attracted more like-minded, open people. So it becomes like an environment where you can open yourself as a person. You can be vulnerable. You can share your weaknesses, and nobody is going to judge you, which is at least what I experienced when I was working there, Pancham.
Right. Right. Oh,
So
thank you so much. Yeah, I think I'm glad you felt that way, and I definitely remember those times when we had those long interactions and discussions, and yeah. So there are ways that we learn from each other. It's not that I have learned everything or I have arrived or I'm completely sorted. There's always work in progress. You're always trying to
yeah,
get better as a person, and see that why are you doing what you're doing,
yeah,
right? And I think always to remember the end. Yeah, if you look at, let's say, the top regrets of people who are having terminal illness and they're about to die, कोई ये नहीं कहता कि यार I want to make more money. I wish I could have spent more hours at work. So there, if there is interesting articles on it, and there are books as well on it. If you read that consistently, that is what people have kind of felt, right? प्रोफेशनल और पर्सनल लाइफ को कैसे इन्फॉर्म कर सकते हैं? क्या फायदा होगा कि 70 साल की उम्र तक हम कुछ कर रहे हैं एक सोच के साथ, और बाद में रियलाइज करें, oh god, this is all wrong, man. I wish I'd kind of spend more time with my parents, or I wish I was a better human
yeah,
being. I wish I wasn't an asshole. I wish I was somebody who was working well with people, and I wish I had taken more risks. I wish I was more happy generally. I wish I was more giving. Right? हम अगर वो चीजें हम कॉर्पोरेट लाइफ में भी कर सकते हैं. For that you don't have to be a saint and go to give up everything. I firmly believe that you can lead your business life in a way which is congruent with these age old principles and morals, and actually things in the long run that work are the ones which are based on that. For example, there's so many examples. Look at Kingfisher, for example, right? Classic example, when this company and what Vijay Mallya stood for, right? And I know them only from a distance, all flamboyance, big aircrafts and living that life. And for certain people who wouldn't, perhaps who are not very grounded themselves and they are still chasing, उनको वो लाइफ बहुत अट्रैक्टिव लगेगी. उनको लगेगा यार यार यही बंदा है, यार यही जीत रहा है, यही बनना है.
ऐसे ही करना है.
आज कहाँ है? पैसे कमा लिए, करोड़ों रुपए कमा लिए, right? But look at the stress that they would have.
right?
Yeah.
Look at the amount of tension they would have. They would be caught up in so many other, issues which are just avoidable. And then on the other side is somebody like Narayan Murthy. Right? For me, these are two very contrasting examples of people who were running businesses, and I always somehow feel from my heart getting gravitated to somebody like Narayan Murthy and the way he and his family has led. Right? And I'm not putting them on a pedestal, neither of them, and I'm not giving any judgment, but I'm saying that I feel that such people, they give more value, they give more to the country, to the community, and they lead a simple life, and they are, during the last 20, 30 years of their lives, probably they'll be happy looking back and saying that, you know what, I led my life well. Yeah. I've kind of influenced people in a certain way to lead a better life. I've given back to the community. It's not about take, just grow yourself and, सिर्फ हम, लेने के लिए ही नहीं आए हैं. We are here to give back. In fact, that's true living. When you give back, and then on top of it, even if you're in business, even if you're not an NGO, for example, that's how we try and approach our work at Cueblocks, or I feel that we try and do that, is that you always keep reminding yourself, how can I serve? How may I serve? How may I serve? So if every interaction you're doing, when you're interacting with a client, trying to deliver a 2 hours job they have given us, or a 6-month project, if you're approaching it with that how, and you're understanding that they have selected you out of probably 40 other companies they had a choice to go to, right? And I need to be doing justice to that, faith that they have in us. Right? If everybody in our team is able to understand that and they are able to deliver, like, we'll be a success. The hourly rate charge karna, or the money will follow on its own. But this is usually a difficult task, and that is why usually we spend a lot of time in trying to hire the right kind of people. Right? We hire based on certain things which are important to us, and that makes the journey easier. Then there are less ruffling of feathers when you work with such people.
Yeah, I think it's the challenging part is, first of all, the founding members, the leaders, the leadership, to be honest people, not honest to themselves, and then making sure that honesty flows through the team so that they are honest when they are serving the clients. And like you rightly said, you cannot teach honesty. You can only teach it by example. You cannot just tell people ki you have to be honest. You have to do that. That has to reflect well in your action. And it is not a very simple thing to do. The more bigger the company grows, the more hierarchy there is. You are scared that what can a repercussion of this information be if it gets leaked. It can be good, it can be bad, but you have to think from all those angles. But the answer usually, I feel, is in the shorter run it might hurt you, but in the longer run it will always pay. To be honest to the team, to the clients, be forthright with people, it helps. It's something I am trying to work on in my relationships, and in also in professional relationships. Try to be more forthright, even if it's not a very comfortable truth to tell people. I still try to tell it to people. And I feel for a person like me, it's like building a muscle. It doesn't come very automatically. I am a very honest person within myself, that I think I know 100%. But to people, especially I care for, that I don't want them to feel bad or think bad about me. I don't want them to go through any pain because of me. This is where the challenge is. And I think this same problem as a CEO or founder of a company you face, when you want to be honest, but you also don't want to pay the price for that honesty in the shorter run.
Mm-hmm.
One of the examples, Pancham, you gave me last time when we met, and I love that example. I hope you can share it with people. The way you, and I asked you, how do you ever does Cueblocks ever get audited by government authorities, and how do you handle that? And you gave me a recent example of some government officials who came to the office, and they told you that there's something that you did not do. Can you tell that story, please?
Yeah, I think it also has always been that we want to do the right thing. Yeah, there is no shortcut, and our accounts team has been told very clearly that we want to ensure that we are compliant in any ways possible. We're not trying to save money in any way, which is not right, because that will always come back to haunt you and bite you. So then I think this was some years back. There was something to do with some service tax department or whatever, and they felt that, when they audited the work, they said that, there was some service tax which had to be deposited, wasn't deposited.
And this was during the time when perhaps we were a smaller company and we did not have the right auditors, and they said this is what is due. And we said that, yeah, that's fine. You can come and, we'll give you all the cooperation required from our side to be in the office, see the work. And we're not trying to find that, that if the amount was, let's say the amount was 5 lakh rupees or 6 lakh rupees. So if पहली बात तो ये थॉट आया ही नहीं कि इसको हम कुछ किसी तरीके से इसको किसी तरीके से दबाया जाए, right? Which could be one smart way, or people think
Yeah,
as a
people
smart
say
way.
that we'll pay you 10% of the
कुछ हो जाएगा ये हो
standing as
very it's all basically digging your own grave in a way. If you do anything wrong, it will always come back to haunt you at some time or the other. And this was like a genuine, we getting blindsided because our, we couldn't find out that this was a service tax or whatever was due correctly to the government. And then they were here. We gave them all the cooperation. We said everything is open. They would come down, have lunch. The 2 auditors would come and have lunch. They would see the work culture that we had. We said everything is right. From our side, you have all the cooperation. Let us know the amount that is due, and we will make sure that we, pay that amount. And later on, I think the good part was when we did pay the amount, because there was no reason to, not pay that amount from our side or find another way. That reputation kind of built. And when somebody from our team ended up actually going to the department, these auditors were sharing with the other inspectors that this is one company where we felt that we haven't really met somebody as honest as them. Which felt really good, which felt like, कि आप अगर ठीक काम करते हो तो ठीक होता ही है, although वो हमारा objective नहीं था. और वो भी यही देखते हैं. I think when people try and see that, whether these guys are wanting to do the right thing or the wrong thing. If you're trying to do the wrong thing, that will take you down a rabbit hole, and there will be other issues and there will be problems that will come down. But if you're very clear and you say that, oh, this was a genuine mistake, this got overlooked by us, we will make sure that we pay the amount, whatever is due, whatever is the legit overall government penalty because of the delay, we are open to paying that. There are no two ways about it, and we'll give you all the support. That I think went a long way for us. And I think that's how we've kind of tried to conduct ourselves, because it emanates from the belief that if you do the right thing will only happen to you.
Yeah, the norm, I can tell you what the norm is. When these people come for the audit, and they also know that we will give them an outstanding that you owe us, let's say 5 lakh rupees, pays 50,000 rupees, we'll do the settlement. Otherwise, you'll have to pay 5 lakh rupees. That's what the norm out there is. Yeah, so it was.
But you know what, ये norm भी बोल के तभी बना है ना जब गलती हुई है.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel गलती हुई है, whether in terms of, we internally not doing the calculation correctly, or our auditor didn't do it properly, and we realized, oh, there were minor points which should have been, which was due actually, so it is wrong. So when you realize and it is brought to your notice that this is something which was due, then you say, yeah, this is wrong. Then we'll reduce our other expenses, we'll reduce our salaries as directors, but we'll make sure that this due is paid off. That's the only way out.
Okay. This brings me to my next question, Pancham. When I was working with you, I had the opportunity to, and it comes around the same theme, same discussion. So when I'm talking to you and you answering those questions, I see a pattern. So when I used to be with you in these interviews, when we used to interview people for SEO, position of SEO or programming and whatever, there's one question I always saw you asking people. And the question was, out of scale of 10, how much do you rate your SEO skills or your writing skills or your sales skills, your XYZ skills? And what I saw is that the answer that you were looking for was always 6 or 7. And you were not looking for answers of 9 and definitely not of 10.
Right.
And do you still ask that question when people come?
Yeah. It's not a scientific question really. It's also giving the opportunity to the other person to be honest in saying, and we also want to see whether the person has a fair degree of self-assessment, right? So 8 is a very safe number, right? So we always come back and say, imagine 10 is like God level, the world's best SEO person, right? And if somebody says, 9, that means that there is hardly any improvement required, and you're almost amongst the world's top people. So I think a lot of times it gives us a sense about where does the person think that he or she is,
and what is the target that the person is going in for. So if a person in our assessment during the interview, you realize the person is really good, but the person has that, clarity of thought to say that I'm still at 6 because I have a long way to go. Right? So for me, that is an indication. That's not the only indication, but it's a good indication to know that this person has a good self-awareness and is wanting to grow. Because we're not going to hire the person says I'm 9 out of 10, right? So it's we will still assess whether the person is really going to be 9 out of 10 or not. But we're trying to find that match and how the person is processing that question, right? And a little bit.
I really love that question. And yeah, I think when you asked me that question, I inevitably said 6 or something, even though maybe you asked me about my SEO skills. I was never an SEO, but I said 6. I did a lot of research, having worked with Atul and done a lot of research. And writing about SEO, I did new, but I think that's where I saw, maybe you saw the fit. I have always been a learner, and I was very, it makes me nervous to say I'm 9 or 10 because I know there are much more smarter people than me. I can't even compare to them. So yeah, but I love that question. Okay. Another thing you told me, Pancham, and I keep going back to things that you told me. Feel free to change your mind if you have to. One discussion we had was about decision making, and I think it happened around those times when I bought a property. I shared with you that I've bought a property, and we were talking about you asked me, how did you make that decision to buy this property? How did you know? And we were talking about decision making. I was telling you I like this and that. I was trying to justify my decision. By the way, that decision was terrible. That property did not give me any return. It was a terrible decision, but I was trying to justify you that it's a smart decision. But one thing you told me then is that you make a decision. When you make a decision, you go by your gut. If you feel nervous about decision, or when someone is you feel is forcing you to make a decision, you inevitably say no. If you're in a hurry, it doesn't matter how golden or shining a thing might look like, you inevitably say no. That's what you told me. So I do see that you have a framework to make decisions in your life. So how has that evolved in the last 7-8 years since we had this discussion, and what is your current framework for making decisions?
Yeah, that's a good question, Pulkit. I think multiple things that go behind it. Number one is that I read it somewhere, and I firmly believe in it as well, that if you are confused, it's a sign maybe from the. Can you hear me, Pulkit?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So if you're confused or you feel that somebody's trying to rush you in, you will be able to say, you know what, back off, or you don't get pressurized into taking a decision if you know yourself really well, right? And I think when I read it somewhere in a book where they said that your gut, if you, or your intuition, if you haven't really about it too much, if you've kind of kept that connection alive, will always tell you something. And whatever your mind may tell you, somebody is giving you input, this place is great, or flana dimkana, but in the heart of heart you're feeling that there is something is right. And I think if you maintain that connect with your intuition, and you're able to then voice it out by saying, you know what, at this point in time, I think that I don't have all the data, I need to take some more time, because eventually वो आपके ऊपर है. I think काफी हद तक कई बार आप जब time लेना चाहते हो, whether it is a decision about property, and there will always be external pressures of, what, this property is going to go away, there are 20 people more asking. These are all external pressures that are created to try and rush you into doing something in a way. दोस्त कई बार बोल देते हैं या ही करते हैं. अगर आप ध्यान से सोचो और आपके अंदर से कोई आवाज आ रही है और आप उस आवाज को सुनो, तो एक तो आवाज प्रबल होती है, it becomes stronger and it doesn't get muted out over time. And that, I believe, is somehow a divine voice, which if you listen to and you realize that it is an indication that I don't have all the data and I am a bit confused, so I need to take more time. So one is that I feel that anytime there is something in my heart, even if, let's say, the apparent data in front of me, let's say I'm interviewing somebody and that person is saying all the right answers, right? But in the heart of heart, I feel that there has been something I have been able to assess about this person, that this person may not be a right fit for us, or this client may not be a right fit for us. And I have that resolve to let go of this opportunity, that this great skilled person will be able to join my company and be productive from day one. I'm able to let go of that opportunity and listen to my intuition. I think it usually has come out really well. So I think one is that I think intuition, and there is something telling you inside. I think if you stop listening to it, वो और कम होती रहती है. But the moment you listen to it, you invariably are not wrong. It is a good time to take a pause and say, you know what, I need a little bit more time on it. Don't rush into something, and I think that has helped me really well. Second is, anytime I take a decision, it's the golden rule there. How, you know, to whether it is about treating people in some way, it is always from that point of view that I want to be treated the same way. If how do you want to treat people? The golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. तो अगर मुझे लगता है कोई भी सिचुएशन है जिसके अंदर किसी का बुरा होएगा या ठीक नहीं होएगा, I try and say that if this is the same thing happening to me, would it be correct? And it is independent of whether the other person will appreciate that or not. So I'm not waiting for the other person to say, you know what, you are very honest and thank you very much for not really firing me, or, you know, thank you so much for taking this decision. It seems like I'm not waiting for a medal from that person. That medal is already inside me, right? At the night when I sleep, when I feel my conscience is clear and I think that decision, that micro decision, that small decision was in sync with my value system, and then I feel happier. So I think primarily that these two are the driving factors. And third is always, you know, when you get rushed, keep in mind, we'll ask this question whether this will matter in 10 years. If I, you know, 10 साल में इस चीज की क्या value होगी? Will it really matter? Sometimes we blow things out of proportion, whether these are issues with relationships or how somebody's treated you, somebody said something to you, right? Or somebody's unfair with you. I think it's important to keep your eye on the ball and keep moving forward without really getting mired in a lot of muck. So if you tell yourself whether this will matter in 10 years' time, it gives a lot of perspective. It puts more distance between that situation and how you should react.
Yeah. So I love that thought, that idea that you have to listen to your gut, that inner voice, and the more you listen to it, the more louder it become. And if you stop listening to it, you'll not be able to listen to it. And it's challenging because there's a lot of noise inside. Everyone does a lot of self-talk. Within me, there's a lot of self-talk happening all the time.
All of us.
And
absolutely.
From that self-talk, to filter out that noise and to really listen to my inner voice, what do I really want? And like you said, will it really matter in next 10 years? We make wrong decisions, and then I think having the other thing, Pancham, what I'm trying to work on these days is trying to create rules in my life, instead of every time I have to, for example, waking up early in the morning at 5. That's what I'm working on. So I don't want to justify the decision. I don't need any validation or any data to make that decision. Or sleeping sleeping at 10, that decision. Those decisions that I can put into rules, for example, something as basic as giving elders unconditional respect. It doesn't matter what they say, you have to respect them. What they say or do, you have to respect them. So I feel if we can create rules as parents, we can create rules as individuals, we can take a lot of decision making out of the way. When you know that this is what my value system is, this is how I want to live my life. And these are and if we start small, right now, the list I'm working on is 8 rules that I've created for myself. That I want to stick to these. I keep going back to them because otherwise what happens is I am not a very, again, this comes back to the way I've been raised. I'm not very disciplined in sticking to things. I come up with an idea, I make a rule, then I break it. For example, not having sugar, avoiding sugar. I'll give myself 10 reasons to, okay, आज खा लेता हूँ, इसमें क्या होगा, ठीक है, थोड़ा सा एक bite ले लेता हूँ. And then what happens is you have one bite of chocolate, it will lead to second bite, and then अब तो आज खा ली है, चलो कल से करेंगे. So it always comes down to setting rules in the life and being थोड़ा सा jihadi about it. I think that's the right way. थोड़ा सा ना उसके लिए वो करना पड़ता है आपको. You have to be कट्टर होना पड़ता है कि नहीं करना है. And चाहे वो people are very cutter with their religious thoughts, but they're not very cutter with their daily practices. That's what I'm trying to learn from these religious extremists कि ये लोग इतने ज़्यादा कट्टर होते हैं. They don't think, they logical thinking नहीं होती वहाँ पे. So once you set rules, it always helps. Especially like a person like me, if I just take decision making out of the way altogether and just say कि करना है भाई, इसमें कोई वो नहीं. Morning उठना है तो आपको नहीं चाहिए, उठना है. I think that has helped, but the inner voice, I like that idea.
And I think also, Pulkit, if I were to add to it, मैंने कहीं पे बड़ा अच्छा पढ़ा था. This was on Rich Roll's podcast. Somebody who I listened to very intently.
Which podcast?
Rich Roll.
Yeah, Rich Roll, yeah.
So he's a vegan ultra marathon legend in a way, and he has a huge podcast and a lot of interesting topics. So I listen to podcasts a lot. That's my way of recharging, learning, etc. So I like that statement a lot, which says mood follows action. Sometimes we feel that we will do something, and when we feel, the urge, but I try and remind myself when I'm guilty of not following it all the time. It's always work in progress. But anytime I feel that, I'm lagging somewhere, कि यार ये, अच्छा है, पर मैं कर नहीं रहा हूँ. I'm not been able to take that action. I'm not being a true कर्म योगी. मैं कर्म नहीं कर रहा हूँ उसके लिए. तो मैं अपने आप को remind करता हूँ that the mood is going to follow action. First, you have to take an action, whether it is with your health, whether you want to say that, I really want to start running, and you understand that you have to first take the action, and the mood, which is a runner's high, which is feeling great, is going to follow that. Whether it is starting a podcast, right? It was always going to be कि ऐसा नहीं होगा, red carpet होगा, you will feel motivated all time, you will be in your best element to give an interview or take an interview or to speak at some point in time. There will be other pressures, but when you think this is important, you say, what, the mood's going to follow up the action. So I'll take that action first. I'll take that first one, because ज़्यादा time नहीं लगता. First 1-2 steps लेने होते हैं, और आप देखोगे suddenly then it starts becoming a flywheel. Slowly things start happening. It's such a good reminder, right? It's such a good reminder to start good habits. And जो आप कह रहे हो, if for you what works is that you will be cutter about a few things. I try and do the same thing. So I have a sweet tooth. I really enjoy sweets.
Very
and
hard.
then there was a time that I decided I'll be off sugar and I'll be off caffeine for a year. और उस टाइम पहले मैंने क्या किया, and then I defined it that अगर मुझे कोई प्रसाद दे रहा होगा या कोई ऐसा situation है where I might be able to offend somebody, I might take it, but it will not break my fast. So I will do a 1-year fast, but I had caveat of these situations where even if I have to eat it, and then उस time यार मैंने कसम खा ली. So what works for me is that in my heart of heart I take that time. I don't take that decision very in a rush, but I take my time. I delve over it for some time, and then I say, what, this is important for me. And now what I'm doing is that I am in my heart of heart साक्षी मान के भगवान को या जो भी higher power, whatever you believe in, मैं ये कसम खा रहा हूँ कि ये मैं ऐसे करूँगा. And sometimes you may falter in it as well. That somehow helps me. And then what happens is the moment you do it for 3, 4, 5 days, you realize कि यार ये तो easy हो गया है, right? For example, today I don't eat anything after 5 p.m., 6 p.m., right? So I'm trying to, that's a different conversation, trying to do time restricted eating and have a weekly fast, 24-hour water fast, etc. So habits हैं, when I decide कि यार I'll do it for a shorter period of time, let's say I'll do it for 3 months period. So as a result, you always know that there's an end sight. It's not something you're deciding for the rest of your life. कई बार ये होता है कि people leave such habits when they think that there's no end to it. That do I need to do it for the rest of my life? But if you do it in like smaller pieces and chunks, it's easy. And then in your memory, you remember how happy and healthy you felt when you actually did not have it. So you delve into those memory banks. Next time you want to get into that phase again. You want to be off sugar, or you want to be off caffeine or whatever.
I completely agree. The step of really pondering and taking your time to tell your brain why are you doing this, telling the why, and that information should really settle down, should have the context that why is very important. And when we do that, for example, the same thing, Pancham, I'm doing these days, the intermittent fasting. I've been trying for almost now 15 days. I try to have my dinner by 8, and next day I have my lunch around 1 or 2. I'll have my lunch. And Mondays I don't eat anything. I try to have that water fast, what you're saying. And when I did it for the first time, I was able to do it, Pancham. I've done it now into the 4th week now. I've been doing able to do it because I had that data that after I might feel hungry after 3-4 hours, but the hunger curve is not going like this. I'll feel hungry. If I don't feed myself, my body will start using glucose, and then hunger will go down. And when my body doesn't get any food, it'll go into ketosis, and it'll know that I have to use that body fat, and I'll not feel hungry. So it's not like this curve, because I used to look at Anna Hazare when वो अनशन में बैठते थे, यार ये कैसे 30 दिन बैठ जाते हैं बिना कुछ खाए. फिर बाद में समझ में आया कि टेक्निकली पॉसिबल है, people can fast, they can. When I had that data point, it was easier for me to make that decision because I had the context.
Who, if they decided on something, they would kind of stick to it, right? And that what does is that it allows us that information in our mind and motivates in some way. और कई लोग होते हैं जिनके लिए मतलब there are different things that work for you, which are important, and it's important to keep, as long as those things are making you, whatever you're deciding is taking you to the positive direction, improving you as a person, and is not causing harm to anybody, then find whatever it, join an online course, commit socially, download an app, or be quiet about it completely. And find, for example, what I do is anytime I do for fast, longer fast, like a 3-day fast or a 5-day water fast. So as the body is changing different things, I listen to my old podcasts about fasting, right? As to abhi mere body mein kya ho raha hai, right? This is what is happening. So that keeps the motivation alive to continue doing it, and that data informs and makes it easier to kind of see through it.
You've done 5 days water fasting आपने करी है?
Yeah, 5 days I've done. That's the longest I've done.
So this is what I want to discuss with you when we talk again. For a long discussion, I'll also gather some data about it, but there's something I'm experimenting with. I'm really curious to learn about it. I think it's been we've been on the call for a while. I'll try to wrap this in 15-20 minutes if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
You're not in a hurry, right? So
I'm not in a hurry. Take your time.
Okay. Pancham, I want to talk to you about negative emotions. Something that I experience, everyone experiences from time to time. A lot of shit is cooking in our brain and we don't know about it. And I think everyone experiences that. As much as I want to believe that you don't experience negative emotions, I'm sure inside you do deal with some negative emotions now and then. So I want to pick your brain on how do you deal with some negative emotions, such as something as like insult, when someone insults you. And the reason I'm asking you this is because this has been my area of research in the last few years. I think and the answer I got was from reading some stoic books. Sorry, I'm not going to answer this question. I want to pick your brain. How do you deal with insult when someone insults you or you say things that you don't like?
Yeah, I think this again goes back to reading stuff about it, because it's always work in progress, really. If somebody says something to your face and something which hurts you, so I try and not react. I think that is the first thing, that I don't necessarily try and have a immediate reaction, right? I love what Stephen Covey had mentioned in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that between the stimulus and the response, man has a choice. तो अपने आप को रिमाइंड करना पड़ता है. कोई आके मुझे अगर गाली दे रहा है तो क्या instinctively, if I don't have control over my emotions, it will be, oh, मैं भी गाली दूंगा, right? That is how generally you get triggered. Yeah. But the moment you do that, I think you have to remind yourself that you're giving up power on your own self. Now, and this all happens within a matter of microseconds. And the more you do it, the better you become as people. You won't be, you won't be triggered. You won't be that angry person who's constantly fighting with people on the streets, or when you're driving and you're always in that anger because somebody cut you off in a wrong way, etc. Which is very, very common. आई थिंक कोई अगर इंसल्ट करता है, मुझे लगता है पहले मैं अपने को रिमाइंड करता हूँ. ऑब्वियसली देयर इज अ immediately when somebody says something to you, you feel a surge of energy, right, which is either mostly negative, right? So I try and create more distance and time between my reaction to it and the starting of that emotion. And then I think in my mind, I try and say that what I learned from Dr. Wayne Dyer, I think I would say I haven't met him, but he's been almost like my spiritual guru as well. And amazing books. He says that if somebody tells you something like an insult or anything which is negative, if you say that you are right or you are wrong, you get trapped into it. But if you say you may be right, or in your mind you say that you may be right, you could be right, you could be wrong. If somebody says, you know what, you're a bad boss, or you're a bad human being, या किसी ने कुछ गाली दे दी या कुछ ऐसा बोल दिया, right? And if I say, yeah, you may be right, maybe I am. In your eyes, maybe I am. Maybe I've done something which has allowed you or made you, feel that trigger, because you don't know me. If there's a stranger who, because of maybe something I did, he or she reacts in a certain way, he or she does not know me as a person in totality. What do I stand for, or whether I'm a well-being person or not. But maybe in that brief 2-3 seconds, something of my body language or something that I did made that person react in a certain way, right? So उनका context मेरे साथ सिर्फ वो 2-3-5 सेकंड का है, जिसके बेसिस पे उन्होंने मुझे कुछ कहा. तो मैं कैसे कह सकता हूँ कि वो गलत है? तो हो सकता है कि उनकी नजर में वो ठीक हो. So you try and tell yourself, yeah, you may be right, and then I'll have to see that whether that actually is true or not, right? So I think if I try and increase the gap between my reaction, and I say that I have a choice to react or consciously choose what I want to say back. Again, it's a difficult task. I'm not saying that I've reached there or I'm trying to preach from a higher ground, but I know that in my mind that is the right way to do, and I try and follow that anyway. Anytime I'm encountered with that situation, thankfully there are not too many of those, but whenever they are there,
Yeah. As we grow, I think what I learned around my 30s, my early 30s, that I have to get rid of conflictive people around me, the people who are source of such conflicts, who are constantly finding themselves in conflict. And there's always pattern in such people. If I try to just stay away from them as much as I can, that really minimizes all those conflicts within my life. I think that is the easiest way. And like you rightly said, this still happens. And I don't know what is the right answer to it. When you're driving, for example, the example you just gave, somebody who's just passing you doesn't like the way you're driving and instantly judges your driving and just curses you on the way, and he's gone,
Right.
and you're already gone. By the time you process that information that he's just cursed me, he's already a kilometer away. Now you have the choice. You can turn the wheel, fetch him, get into a fight. What
Just
he would want, the people who do that, they exactly want that. They want these things in their life. But again, we have to be intelligent enough, I think, and it does require some introspection and having at least the awareness that these things can happen, and when these things happen, how do I react? So
Absolutely. Very well said. And I think we shouldn't be carrying this as well, right? वो तो बोल के चले गया, उसकी लाइफ चल रही है आगे, और हम अगर वही सोचते रहें कि आज, और वो मुश्किल होता है sometimes, when somebody might say something which genuinely may hurt you. But I think it's important to, like you said, right? Sometimes you have to stand up, and sometimes you have to let go. ये जो गुड जजमेंट है, कहाँ पे स्टैंड अप करना है और कहाँ पे लेट गो करना है, लाइफ का खेल ये है. हर एक सिचुएशन में ये खेल है. जिसको आगे आर्ट ऑफ लिविंग असल में ये है, राइट? कि आपका क्या, व्हाट इज योर गुड जजमेंट एंड व्हाट यू आर ट्राइंग टू डू. And also sometimes you have to, if you're open ended, if it's happening too often to you, if people are insulting you, then it's an important point to take a pause here. Maybe I'm doing something.
right.
रोज के आगे बोल रहे हो, कुछ तो सच्चाई होगी.
लाइफ मेरी खराब हो.
तो कुछ not just then ask your friends, ask somebody, what, I want to have a very open conversation, and I want to understand that am I like this, and
Right.
it's important to be self-aware and then say, yeah, ye shayad I'm a short-tempered person, or maybe then do I want to change it? Then that can lead to a series of steps if you're open to it and you want to kind of at least be self-aware and then deal with it.
Yeah, you can just be close-ended and you'll always think, यार मेरे साथ ही हो रहा है यार, मुझे आके, you know, why do I get fired from all the companies? Why do I find all the wrong people? Why do people keep, you know, making fun of me? Or whatever is happening, if it is happening too often, maybe there is something that you need to do, something that you need to
Self-reflection.
correct. Right?
I think
Because
that is a recipe for becoming a better person when you keep absorbing this negative energy. And before we know, we are better as a person.
it's important to have that judgment to know है कोई आपको कह भी रहा है तो आप उसमें believe कर रहे हो नहीं कर रहे हो, आपकी personality पे है. It's how your make is, right? There's some people who might get into depression just because two people have told them that, you know, you're not a good person. Really, and you know, or whatever they might just tell you.